Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast live stream. We haven't talked a lot recently about the Houthis, that Iran-backed terrorist movement based in Yemen that has caused so much havoc in the Red Sea and for the United States Navy and for global shipping over the past several months. Well, folks, today we need to talk about the Houthis because two major incidents today that they are claiming responsibility for involving Israel. I'm talking about Israel's largest ports being affected, being targeted by the Iran-backed Houthis. Now, this comes obviously at a time when the war in Gaza is still happening. Look, Israel trying to complete its operations in Rafah and nail down that war essentially and defeat Hamas decisively. That's number one. Number two, we've been talking every day practically about the looming Great Northern War with Hezbollah. And now we have the Houthis upping their game, so to speak, in tandem with Iraqi militias, again, Iranian-backed terrorists. So this hybrid, this combination of the Houthis in Yemen and these Iraqi terror groups collaborating to attack Israeli ports. Now, again, this is happening in the run-up to a potential Great Northern War with Hezbollah. Could this, folks, I'll just lay this question out to you right away as we get started here. And welcome to everyone from around the world who's joining us. By the time we're done, we will have thousands here with us. But kind of laying down the gauntlet here from the outset, is this the MO? Will this be the model for that Great Northern War? Meaning, and I've said this for years now, folks, we've talked about this. All along we've said here that if Iran activates the ring of fire that surrounds Israel on all sides. We're talking Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza. We're talking, of course, Hezbollah in Lebanon. We're talking, yes, the Houthis in Yemen to the south. We're talking the Shia militias in Iraq and Syria. And we're talking increasingly Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland, which the world knows as the West Bank. Here on the Watchman, we call it Judea and Samaria because that's what the Bible calls it. And if it's good enough for God, it's good enough for us, needless to say. So, will Iran, think about the stakes here. Think about the stakes. The Gaza ring of that ring of fire is essentially dead right now, in that Israel is close to crushing Hamas and, by extension, Palestinian Islamic Jihad decisively in Gaza. So, Iran is losing a ring of the ring of fire there. Remember, the whole goal was to surround Israel, which is, helpful reminder, the size of the state of New Jersey, surround Israel on all sides. Well, now Gaza, you're losing that. Iran cannot afford, for its strategy, for its ideology, for its end game, Iran cannot afford to lose another ring. And I mean the biggest ring in that ring of fire, the most strategic asset Iran has, the crown jewel of the Iranian regime. We're talking about Hezbollah in Lebanon. And I say that to say, okay, if that's the case, then perhaps we should not be surprised one bit that now the other rings on the ring of fire, I'm talking in particular Yemen and Iraq, are heating up as well. Meaning, when Israel goes toe-to-toe with Hezbollah in that coming Great Northern War, and folks, look, we've told you about this for at least 5 years. We've been talking about this here on the YouTube channel, of course, on my television programs as well. But all along, we said, look, Hezbollah, in Iran's view, is too big to fail. So when the Great Northern War comes, which, again, we've been talking about for years, we know it's if not when, or when. It's not a question of if, but when, I should say. It's a really good bet that the entire ring of fire will activate because, again, Iran already lost Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza. They cannot afford to lose Hezbollah, the crown jewel. So is Iran going to throw everything but the kitchen sink at Israel in this Great Northern War? Meaning the Houthis are all in. The Shia militias in Syria and Iraq, they're all in. Or what we are seeing with these attacks on Israeli ports by the Houthis and Iraqi militias. They're claiming these attacks, and we'll dig into the specifics. I'm talking Haifa and Eilat. These aren't some backwaters. These are major Israeli port cities. Is this a precursor? Meaning, okay, Israel and Hezbollah, it's go time, and the Great Northern War starts. No one wants to see it for obvious reasons. It's going to be a nasty affair. but it's inevitable in that Israel, it's unsustainable, folks. Situation to the north, as we've discussed many times here in the newscast, Israel cannot abide by a status quo where tens of thousands of Israelis are evacuated from their homes in the north as Hezbollah remains perched on that border. It's unsustainable. Israel must do something. And if diplomacy isn't going to work, and it doesn't seem like it's going to, then Israel's going to have to act decisively against Hezbollah. That could mean Hezbollah weakened beyond recognition, weakened beyond repair, perhaps, but certainly in the short term, weakened severely. And folks, I don't know if Iran feels it can afford that. It just lost Gaza. Can it afford to lose Lebanon too? I don't think so in their calculus. So what I'm saying is this: there's a really good chance that, again, everything but the kitchen sink, the entire ring of fire. Hey, we're not letting Hezbollah go down. Houthis get involved. Militias get involved. Perhaps even Assad regime in Syria get involved, which, remember, has a pretty large ballistic missile stockpile, biological and chemical weapons as well. Isaiah 17, anyone? We're talking Bible prophecy here and ramifications and what could potentially precipitate what the book of Isaiah says will be the end of the city of Damascus, the Syrian capital. Does Assad miscalculate and get involved? Look, folks, it's in today's Middle East, expect the unexpected. Anyone who tells you they know exactly what's going to happen is not being honest with you. We'll just say that. So expect the unexpected. And that situation in the north is the tinderbox to end all tinderboxes. So it wouldn't shock me to see the entire ring of fire activated, and maybe we're seeing rumblings of that with the Houthis stepping up their game, so to speak, against Israel. And what's the main reason, by the way? Folks, what is the main reason that Iran needs to preserve Hezbollah? Why, in nearly 18 years, isn't that crazy? It was July 2006, the last time Israel and Hezbollah went toe-to-toe in a major way. That all changed, obviously, on October 8th, 2023, the day after the October 7th massacre over 8 months ago, when Hezbollah began barraging Israel on a daily basis with rockets and missiles. In 18 years, that hadn't happened. There'd be minor skirmishes, tensions high, of course, for 18 years, but nothing to the extent of what we've seen now, where it's a war in the north. Our good friend Yair Pinto, our TBN correspondent in Jerusalem, he was on my program Stakelbeck Tonight, last night on TBN. By the way, if you like the newscast, you'll love our nightly television show. It's called Stakelbeck Tonight, airing every night, Monday through Friday, every weeknight on TBN, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, with a re-air at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Each night, mark your calendar, 7:30 and 10:30 p.m. Eastern, every night on TBN, and TBN Plus. You can watch on the TBN app as well. But Yair said, look, Erick, it's war already to the north. And he's been up there reporting on a regular basis. By the way, you can subscribe to his channel here on YouTube, the TBN Israel channel. He's, I think, fast approaching 800,000 subscribers because he's doing amazing work, he and the entire TBN Israel team. So be sure to subscribe over there as well. TBN Israel, folks. Yair Pinto and the team doing awesome, awesome work. But Yair, I interviewed him for Stakelbeck Tonight on TBN. He said, look, it's a war already, Erick. It may not be a full-scale, all-out war like Gaza has been over the months, but look, it's a war. The floodgates haven't entirely opened, but we're on the precipice of total war in the north. And Iran has avoided that for 18 years, avoided activating Hezbollah. Why? Folks, I believe the main reason. And what do you think? Get your comments in. Why have we not seen a major war in 18 years between Israel and Hezbollah? I've got my opinion on it. I think it's I want to hear your opinion. Before I dig into it, send me your comments. And thank God there has been a major war in 18 years, but now we're on the verge of one. How was it avoided for 18 years? Why is now different? Obviously, it's different because October 7th, which I believe Iran engineered, changed the game, and the entire process is in full swing right now. But a major reason, folks, that is relevant today, that Iran held Hezbollah back for 18 years. It withheld its crown jewel time and time again. as Israel had flare-ups with Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza, you would think, hey, our brothers in Lebanon are going to get involved. Hezbollah is going to throw their hats in the ring. And yet they did not until October 8th. And even that has not been the full force of Hezbollah's massive arsenal, even though they've launched thousands of rockets, missiles, and attack drones over the past 8 months plus. I'm going to tell you why I believe that, and this has major relevance for Israel, the United States, the West, the free world. In a minute, I want to get your thoughts. Why do you think? Hey, we have a very active chat here. I'm just looking at the side of my laptop as you guys scroll down. So send your comments there. And real quick, while you're doing that, quick reminder, if you like what you're hearing here, this is current events and breaking news from a boldly, unapologetically biblical perspective here on the Watchman YouTube channel. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. We're posting most days, folks, because there's a lot happening. Even on the weekends, we'll post because there's a lot happening. In case you haven't noticed, the world's most chaotic and volatile region is flaring up, really like never before in the modern era, at least, and it affects you no matter where you live. In particular, if you are a follower of Jesus, a Bible believer, folks, you should know, you should have discernment so that you can be a light in this growing darkness. And that's why I want to give a shout out to our sponsor for today's live stream, my good friends at ICEJ. It's the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem. Folks, they're representing the body of Christ in the land of Israel, in Jerusalem, in God's city. These are my dear friends, the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem. I've worked with them for years, and it's been fun over the months here as in the aftermath of October 7th. Israel needs our help. The Jewish people need our help. Israel needs a few good friends right now. So it's been fun for me to hook up with my dear friends at places like ICEJ, the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem, to get that help to the people of Israel. Let me explain who ICEJ is. Established in 1980 in recognition of the biblical significance of all of Jerusalem and its unique connection with the Jewish people. Pretty good mission statement, huh? But it's better. Today, ICEJ represents millions of Christians worldwide and denominations, representing them to the nation and the people of Israel. Here's a little bit of what ICEJ is doing right now to support Israel and bless Israel, fulfilling that biblical mandate laid out in Genesis 12:3. By the way, it's www.impactisraeltoday.com. That's impactisraeltoday.com. You see the information there on your screen to help ICEJ help Israel at its time of greatest need. Here's what ICEJ is doing, folks. Assisting over 4,000 evacuated Israelis, rebuilding decimated communities in Israel's south along the Gaza border, supplying vital emergency equipment to first responders, providing portable bomb shelters, and renovating existing shelters. Folks, get this. 2.6 million Israelis right now do not have access to functional bomb shelters as rockets and missiles are falling from the north, from Yemen even, as we're about to talk about, from Gaza, of course. That's why ICEJ is stepping into the void, and they are providing these portable bomb shelters. I've seen them, folks, on the ground in Israel. They're doing great work, and everyone knows who ICEJ is and what they're doing. The people of Israel know, and they appreciate it greatly. Feeding and caring for elderly Holocaust survivors, providing food for Israeli families below the poverty line, fighting anti-Semitism left and right everywhere here in the United States. Again, folks, I won't stand with or mention an organization here on the live stream unless I know them personally and have worked with them and can vouch for them. ICEJ, the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem, founded in 1980. They've been in Jerusalem ever since. These are honorable, mighty men and women of God who are doing God's work. Check them out, support them today. Again, it's impactisraeltoday.com, impactisraeltoday.com. We are proud to stand with our good friends at ICEJ for such a time as this, and quite a time in Yemen, where, as I mentioned at the top, the Houthis are stirring things up. Before we get to the Houthis, what's your answer, folks? Let me look at the chat here real quick. What do we have? Okay. They've been prepping. Why hadn't Hezbollah attacked Israel? All sorts of different opinions here. Here's what I think. By the way, we've got one of our commenters, a Philadelphia Eagles fan in the Philippines. I like you already. And Larry Brown, that's the name of the Philadelphia 76ers, former coach, but I digress. Okay, here's what I believe, folks, and it's real simple. Iran has held Hezbollah in reserve because of Iran's nuclear program. I think this is pretty simple, right? If a day comes where one of two things is going to happen here, you know the end game, right? It's common sense. Either we're going to wake up one day and there will be an announcement, it'll be blaring Fox News, CNN, across Twitter, the web, everywhere. The Iranian regime just tested a nuclear weapon. Or you're going to wake up and Israeli fighter jets are in the skies and they're bombing Iran's nuclear facilities. I don't really see any in between there. Oh, you can kick the can down the road for 20 years and be in this murky gray area that we're in right now, where Iran is at the threshold but haven't crossed the line yet. And the West knows, and Israel knows, that they're eventually going to have to act, but they're not quite ready to and not quite willing to in the case of the West. But eventually, correct me if I'm wrong, we have a very educated viewership here. I love our wise watchmen and women on the wall who tune in every day. What do you think? Weigh in here. Is there another? I mean, to me, it ends in one of two ways, the Iranian nuclear crisis. Either Israel strikes because the West doesn't have the backbone to do it, even though it threatens the West, or Iran gets the bomb. There's no in between. With that in mind, Israel has held Hezbollah in reserve for one of two options. Okay, if we get the bomb before Israel has a chance to prevent us from doing that, and by the way, I find that unlikely. With the great intelligence Israel and great assets Israel has on the ground in Iran, I find that unlikely. That Israel wouldn't strike first, have the intel, but I digress. If we have the bomb, we have Hezbollah to dissuade Israel from trying to act against us. Or because look, Hezbollah is a formidable foe, armed to the teeth, 150,000 rockets, missiles. By the way, we're getting to the ports in a minute. Don't worry, but this is important. No pun intended. Important. Dad joke, I guess you would call that. But in all seriousness, the other point here would be, okay, Israel strikes Iran. How does Iran respond? Iran's not just going to take it on the chin if Israel strikes Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran's got to respond. The most likely route to do that would be through Hezbollah. And there you have it, folks. That's why Iran has held Hezbollah in reserve. It's all about Iran's nuclear program, which means it's one thing to have Hamas in its death throes in Gaza. It's another thing entirely, as I said at the top, to have Hezbollah in its death throes and on the verge of collapse. If that's the case, I believe the Houthis and the militias in Iraq, Syria, that'd be just the least of it. I believe Iran would directly intervene if it saw Hezbollah ready to be dealt a death blow by the IDF. So, again, in Iran's view, Hezbollah, too big and too important to fail. Okay, the ports. Here it is. Today, Haifa, the third largest city in Israel and home to Israel's largest port, according to the Houthi rebels in Yemen, they, along with the Islamic resistance in Iraq, an umbrella group of Iran-backed Iraqi Shia jihadis, they claim that they attacked Haifa port. Here's the specifics, folks, from a Middle Eastern media outlet, albawaba.com. Wow, that's a mouthful. At any rate, Houthi military spokesperson General Yahya Sari announced that the Houthis, I'm just reading this off my phone, by the way, that's why I'm looking down, that the Houthis, in collaboration with the Iraqi resistance, jointly carried out a drone attack operation aimed at the Israeli ship MSC Manzanillo, sounds Italian actually, but it's an Israeli ship, in the Haifa port, using several drones to achieve its objective. Let me preface this by saying Israel has not acknowledged this yet, this supposed Haifa strike, which the Houthis are strongly claiming. Additionally, Sari disclosed for the first time that the missile used in targeting the Israeli ship MSC Sarah V in the Arabian Sea was a locally made hypersonic missile. Now, we've reported this in the past here on the newscast, that the Houthis are claiming they have hypersonic missiles. Clearly, if they do have them, they were supplied by either Iran, North Korea, Russia, China. Somehow they got into the hands of the Houthis. We don't know this for certain. That would be a game changer, of course, if the Houthis had hypersonic missiles. But he's claiming they do, for what it's worth. Known for, obviously, hypersonic missiles, known for high accuracy, long-range capabilities. They fly at a low altitude, many times more the speed of sound. So it's a different game when you have hypersonic missiles. The Houthis affirm their commitment to continuing joint military operations in support of the Palestinian people until the, quote, aggression ceases and the siege of Gaza, supposed, is lifted. And we just debuted a hypersonic missile in the Arabian Sea targeting an Israeli ship. Again, he repeated that. And they also claim to have targeted the U.S. carrier USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, compelling, according to them, its departure from the Red Sea towards the Mediterranean Sea. Wow. Folks, this is a major deal. And again, we're talking about precursors. Haifa, it's pretty clear, and I'm sad to say I love the city of Haifa. A home to Mount Carmel, where Elijah slew the prophets of Baal, an amazing place. It's beautiful. It almost has a European feel, Haifa. It's a beautiful place. Again, the third largest city in Israel, but home to Israel's largest port. Hezbollah has been, look, last week here in the newscast, we told you about Hezbollah drones capturing surveillance footage of the Haifa port. Now, why? And now the Houthis saying they struck Haifa port with drones. Why the fixation on Haifa port? Well, it's Israel's main port. It could cripple Israel economically. And it could have shockwaves for the global economy as well, as a lot of business is done there. So this is not a far stretch to believe, obviously, that they'll not only strike the port of Haifa in that future northern war, but civilians in Haifa, God forbid, could also be targeted, folks. Let's tell it like it is. This is reality. It's a distinct possibility. So are the Houthis probing here? Hezbollah carried out these surveillance flights last week of Hezbollah drones. They released about 10 minutes of footage of Haifa and the port. So are the Houthis and the Iraqi Shia militias, again, working in tandem, are they probing on behalf of the Iranian regime and Hezbollah? It's a very good possibility. Again, Israel hasn't commented on the Haifa incident, but there's been so much chatter surrounding Haifa in recent weeks. And what will happen in Haifa? Will it be targeted in that great northern war? That today does not come to a shock, as a shock, I should say. And that wasn't it. 2 of Israel's 3 largest ports reportedly attacked today by the Houthis, they're all over this, folks. They're claiming responsibility and puffing their chest out. Number 1, Haifa. Number 2, Eilat. Now, Eilat is the southernmost city in Israel. It sits on the Red Sea. It's a beautiful, beautiful tourist spot, resort town. Love Eilat. Love the beaches there. Well, here's what happened today in Eilat. Suspected Houthi attack along with these Iraqi Shia militias. A drone attack in Eilat. Now, here's the good news. Israeli officials did acknowledge this one, and they said, yeah, drones came our way, flew towards Eilat, but they never reached Israeli territory. We monitored them the whole time. Yemen's and the Houthis, about 1,000 miles south of Eilat along that Red Sea coast. But he said, look, this Israeli military spokesperson said, look, we were monitoring the whole time. We knew it was coming. It never reached Israeli airspace. Amen. That's incredible. But it's not the first attempted attack, folks. Many times the Houthis have attempted to carry out attacks on Eilat. None of them, thank God, have been successful. I think back even to a year or two ago when the Houthis were making noise about striking Israel, where Israel moved an Iron Dome battery to Eilat to offset any potential Houthi strike. So again, this is that ring of fire. And folks, this is nothing to sneeze at. Now, Israel has held its fire in regards to the Houthis over the months. Just as Hezbollah upped its attacks after October 7th, they saw an opening. So did the Houthis. And they have the same line that Hezbollah has. Look, as long as Israel continues its campaign in Gaza against Hamas, then we, the Houthis, and we, Hezbollah, and we, the Iraqi Shia militias, we will continue, targeting Israel. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Does that stop if there is a ceasefire in Gaza? Yoav Gallant, the Israeli defense minister, has spent the last 2 days in Washington, D.C., meeting with top Biden administration officials. And Gallant has called for a unified front against the Iranian Ring of Fire, the Iranian Axis, as he calls it, with Iran as the head of the snake. But there are rumblings that, look, as Lloyd Austin, the U.S. Defense Secretary, and other top Biden administration officials meet with Gallant, they're imploring Gallant to de-escalate tensions in the north, to not go at it in Lebanon. Now, it's been interesting the past 48 to 72 hours or so. It's been a little more quiet up north on that Lebanon border, and there's been pressure on Gallant increasing with U.S. officials, surprise, surprise, saying, don't escalate in the north. You could spark a major war. Well, war is already upon Israel in the north. No one wants to see it, but it's there. And if Israel doesn't strike Hezbollah now, just as with the nuclear program, which, by the way, Gallant called on the U.S. to take action against in these meetings over the past 48 hours. But is it just kicking the can down the road? You've kicked the can down the road with Iran's nuclear program for years and years. If you come to some sort of short-lived treaty with Hezbollah, is that just kicking the can down the road for a year or two as Hezbollah regroups, strategizes, and is even stronger in a year or two? You have tens of thousands of Israeli reserves called up right now on war footing. This seems to be a pretty reasonable time to deal with Hezbollah, especially because you have to return the tens of thousands of evacuated Israelis to their homes in the north. And folks, what about you? What do you think? If you lived in the north, I've asked this before. Okay, say this ends with some sort of ceasefire with Hezbollah. Hezbollah magically, I guess, agrees to back up from the Israel-Lebanon border, say 10 miles. The ideal would be 19 miles or so beyond the Litani River in Lebanon. Even if that happens, are you comfortable returning to your home in the north if Hezbollah is still every bit as strong as it was on October 7th? Yes, Hezbollah has taken some pretty serious lumps over the past 8 months plus in these engagements with Israel, again, which Hezbollah instigated. Key point there. They've lost several top commanders, over 340 top operatives. So they've taken lumps, and Israel struck them hard, but they're still largely intact, folks. Let's make no mistake about it. So if you are a resident of the north, and the outcome here in the next few weeks, because I believe this is coming to a head, and the outcome here is some sort of ceasefire where Israel and Hezbollah come to a ceasefire. Do you go home? Yeah, the rockets and missiles have stopped for now. But what about a year from now? What about 2 years from now? Again, is this just kicking the can down the road with Hezbollah if you agree to some sort of deal right now? And again, if I'm a resident of the north who's been evacuated, I'm not going home unless Hezbollah is crushed. Unless Hezbollah gets the same treatment that Hamas got after October 7th. Unless Hezbollah is severely weakened to the point where it can no longer pose any sort of threat to Israel ever again, any sort of significant threat. Certainly not an October 7th style attack, which is what Hezbollah ultimately wants to do. They'd like to carry out attacks of many more magnitudes than what we saw on October 7th, but in Israel's north. And while they still have the capability to do that, you can agree to a ceasefire, some kind of UN broker deal, U.S. broker deal, whatever. But if they're still there at full strength, anywhere near that border, and I'm saying a few miles away, 10 miles away, I don't think people are going back to the north. I find it highly unlikely, unless Hezbollah is dealt with militarily. And that's the unpleasant truth, and you can't blame the people of the north, can you? Because deterrence was the name of the game with Hamas for years and years. And deterrence blew up quite literally, I'm sad to say, on October 7th. Hamas was not deterred, clearly. And if you come to there was a ceasefire with Hamas on October 6th. Let's not forget that Hamas unilaterally broke on October 7th. If you have that same type of situation with Hezbollah, I mean, again, kicking the can down the road to an inevitable confrontation that everyone's known for years is coming. We'll see the timing on it. In the meantime, if there's ceasefire there, the Biden administration is trying to sell Israel on this scenario. Look, if there's peace in Gaza and quiet there, then Hezbollah and the Houthis will hold their fire. As soon as, they're saying, agree to the Gaza ceasefire, guys, because if you do that, then you'll get Hezbollah and the Houthis off your back, and you'll avoid a major war in the north, in particular with Hezbollah. By the way, Israel has largely ignored the Houthis and left it up to the UK and the US to deal with the Houthis, and that hasn't gone so well, as the US and UK have not taken the kinds of serious steps to really deter the Houthis, meaning the head of the snake, Houthi leadership, things like that. That hasn't happened that we know of. And that's why the Houthis are emboldened and now firing drones at Haifa. But if Israel, this is being sold, a Gaza ceasefire is being sold to Israel by the Biden administration and the West as the elixir, the magic solution, the potion for all of Israel's problems in the region. If the guns stop in Gaza, they'll stop in Lebanon and Yemen and elsewhere as well. And they may for a little while. It's a devil's bargain. So, folks, I pray, and I hope you join me in prayer, for Israel's leaders to have the wisdom of Solomon and spines of steel, because they are dealing with relentless international pressure on a daily basis. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has the toughest job in the world. No doubt. Even before October 7th, I said that. Whoever the Prime Minister of Israel has, literally has the toughest job in the world. Unheard of political pressure from people who are supposed to be your allies in the West, and on the other hand, unprecedented spiritual warfare. It's a spiritual war over Israel, over Jerusalem. The devil hates Israel because God loves Israel, and he chose Israel. The devil hates God's creation and what God loves. And if you are the leader of Israel, you have all of that on your shoulders. Spiritual warfare in the natural, both diplomatic and physical. It's unprecedented, and there's nothing like it in the world. So, folks, keep the leaders in Israel in your prayers, no doubt. Thanks so much for joining us here today on the Watchman Newscast. Until tomorrow, God bless you, and remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you